What are two of my most treasured possessions? Any ideas? People, that's important, but not at the first two spots. My home, close, but not at the top. My vocation, no, it's possessions, things that I possess physically. My cat, my car, very close. My chalice is also very close to the top. Honestly, it's my green card and my passport. Those two items I keep in a vault in a bank underground. Because God forbid someone steals my green card or my passport, I am kaput. I'll be in a very difficult situation. If my house got robbed, they take away my cat, my computer, my iPad, everything, okay. But if they steal my green card, it's a huge headache. If I take away my passport, I'll become homeless probably. Especially when I travel overseas, my green card and my passport need to be in a safety deposit box. Without these two documents, I'm lost. I cannot come home to St. Louis without my green card and my passport. Without my passport, I cannot go back home to Poland. If God forbid something happens to these two of my most treasured possessions. We live in a world where identity documents, driver's license or green card or passport, are becoming more and more important. Many states have introduced laws that you cannot vote without an ID, right? You cannot come back to the USA without a passport or a green card. And it makes sense because that piece of paper confirms your identity. It says your first name, your middle name, your last name, your date of birth, your place of birth, your residence address, and so on. If you go to a new place where people don't know you, that passport or green card or driver's license confirms that what you tell them you are, you really are. Without that ID document, you could invent your stories, you could invent your names, you could invent your identity. You would have more than one AKAs. But that piece of document, that green card or passport or ID, makes people believe that who you say you are, you really are. And dear ladies, those of you who have been married, you had to go through changing of your IDs, remember? Once you get married, at least traditionally speaking, many women take upon themselves new last name. Have you done that? Yes? Okay. So it takes some paperwork, right? You have to go to the city hall, to the recorder of deeds, apply for new social security card, for new driver's license, get a new passport if you want to go on a honeymoon with your sweetheart. All these things just because you married a guy, and now you've got to get a new ID. And now it says you are someone else. Your maiden name is gone, poof. And you are taking upon yourself a new kind of identity. You are taking upon yourself your husband's last name. Now, to be fair, In my 12 years of priesthood, I did 2 weddings when husbands took wives' names. Over 200 weddings and 2 cases when a guy took a name of his wife. In both cases, wives were the breadwinners. They were highly professional, positioned persons, and they couldn't change their last name because they had a career to acknowledge. And now, as you know, Iowa, north of us, Illinois, east of us, they have same-sex marriages. Last weekend, I performed 4 same-sex weddings in Belleville, Illinois, and I was so entertained when I met with these couples when they were arguing who takes whose name. Welcome to the new world. Marriage equality also means what name will we have? Who will have what kind of last name will we have together? They have many hours and perhaps days of long conversations to figure out what last name will they use eventually. But that moment when you decide as a spouse, most often as a wife, to change your last name has to be quite important moment in your life. Because for what, 20, 25, 30, 40 years, you had one last name, your maiden name, or perhaps your name from your first marriage, and then you meet that guy, and you fall in love, and that thing happens. You shake, because you realize, I've got to give up my old identity. I have to take upon myself a new kind of identity. And all that headache begins. Again, changing Social Security, driver's license, passport, all because of that guy next to you. Something similar happened to Simon and to Saul. Today, we celebrate the feast day of Simon and Saul, right? Before they met Jesus, Peter's name was Simon. Simon, son of Jonah. Simon, son of John. Before Saul encountered Jesus on the way to Damascus, his name was Saul, the Pharisee, the scholar of the law. And after their encounter with Jesus, Peter face to face, Paul in a mystic vision, they've got to get new identity cards. Simon is Simon no more. Saul is Saul no more. Jesus says to Simon, Simon, from now on you will be called Peter the Rock. And on this rock I shall build my church. Again, if you don't know Greek, Petra in Greek means the rock, the stone. So Jesus says to Simon, Simon, you are the rock. Your name shall be the rock. And when Saul encountered Jesus on the way to Damascus, where he was going to persecute Christians, he fell off his horse, or camel, most probably. He became blind, and after a number of days, the community of believers in Damascus begins to call him Paul. Again, a new kind of identity. just like newly married women taking upon themselves new last name. Encounter with Jesus, both for Simon Peter and Saul Paul, changes their identity. It changes how they perceive themselves. It changes how everyone else perceives them. Is it fair that wives take on the names of their husbands? Not. But it happens. From now on, everybody sees you as Michael's wife, right? You are defined in a way by your relationship to your spouse. As a mother, as a wife, that's your new name tag. The very same thing happens with Simon and with Saul once they encounter Jesus. That meeting with Jesus changes everything. Simon was a simple fisherman, no education whatsoever. And yet, out of blue, Jesus expects him to be the rock, the foundation of the new church. Imagine that. No training, no college degree, and you are supposed to lead all others? With Saul, totally different story. Saul, highly educated, at least PhD, we would say nowadays. Well-trained theologian, and very zealous in his faith. He believed that followers of Jesus are destroying Jewish faith, that they are heretics, and hence should be persecuted, convinced to change, or off with your head. And then when Saul encounters Jesus, his life turns around 180 degrees, and from a zealous persecutor he becomes a zealous evangelizer. Many historians will say that Paul invented Christianity, and he did. Christian theology is based at least in 90% on Paul's writings. It wasn't Peter's theology that we study today. It is Paul's theology that shapes us into who we are as Christians. Even if you are not a married woman who had to change her last name, you and I have to change our identity. I think in most of our lives it happens in two stages. Once, when we are baptized. At the time of baptism, you are given a Christian name. When a priest or deacon baptized you, he said, "Michael, I baptize you in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit." That's how your baptism took place. Your name was given to you. Your identity as a God's child, as God's adopted daughter, as God's adopted son, was given to you at the time of your baptism. It should change your life. As people who are baptized, we cannot live as pagans. We cannot live as if God doesn't exist. We cannot live as we were Christians only one day a week, and 6 other days we are pagans. in hiddenness. It doesn't work that way. But that, for most of us, was the first step. For me and for many of you, the second step was deciding to be a part of St. Stanislaus. That's when you made up your mind to say, okay, I am Christian, I am Catholic, but I want to be that kind of Catholic. I want to be identified with this movement that we call St. Stans. I am happy as a Christian, I am happy as a Catholic, but I want more. I want to be St. Stan's kind of Catholic. And that was a very conscious choice for me, and I think for most of you as well. When we decided this is from now on my new identity. I'm Christian, I'm Catholic, and I take upon myself new identity, St. Stan's kind of Catholic. A Catholic who defines God as, first of all, love. A Catholic who defines church as, to quote Pope Francis, a hospital for broken souls. A Catholic who believes that the church needs to open its doors wide open. A Catholic who believes that all sacraments should be available to all who come forward. And that changes who we are. That makes your neighbors and friends ask, what happened to you? What happened to all your life of being good Roman Catholic? Did you fall off course like Saint Paul did? Yes, I did. I fell off my camel and became St. Stan's Catholic. I took upon myself a new kind of identity. Like Simon, like Saul, like so many others before me, there was a moment in my life when I decided that my relationship with Jesus make me into someone new. It makes me into a different kind of a person. That my old life matters and counts. I cannot erase my past. But because of my encounter with Jesus, I am someone new. I have a new identity. Now, thank goodness, I don't need to change my green card or passport because I became St. Stan's kind of Catholic. But I had to get a new visa because my old one expired from the Roman Catholic diocese. And I had to apply for a new one. I hope that your life has changed because of your baptism, and more recently, because of your identity with St. Stanislaus. I hope that you make your neighbors, your friends, ask you weird questions, that your coming to this church provokes conversation, that it initiates dialogue, because the very same thing happened to Simon and to Saul. Their new identity made them go 110% after Jesus. They both followed him to the end, and so should we.